Bad news on the jobs front, the highest unemployment rate in 8 years. Discount fares and a summer holiday add up to airport madness across the country. And Campaign 92, tonight, Hollywood and women teaming up for change. This is the CBS Evening News. Good evening, I'm Charles Kuralt, sitting in tonight for Dan Rather. One agency of the government announced today that unemployment has gone from bad to worse, and another agency, the Federal Reserve, leapt in minutes later to cut interest rates, yet another attempt to get the economy moving. CBS News money correspondent Ray Brady has our report.
Manufacturing, construction, retailing. In nearly every industry, unemployment jumped last month as the jobless rate surged to 7.8%, the highest in 8 years, pushed up by job cuts and new graduates crowding into the labor market.
The recovery is faltering, and it certainly raises the possibility of another recession.
The Federal Reserve moved fast, slashing the discount rate to its lowest level since John F. Kennedy was president. Big banks cut their prime rate to 6%. That means that other rates will be coming down. Bad news for savers and retirees, but the hope is that lower rates on loans will get Americans borrowing and spending again.
People are trying to pay cash for everything. If you can't pay cash, then you don't buy.
That's the problem. Even some Americans with jobs have lost confidence. These people are taking special courses, worried about losing their jobs to younger workers who work more cheaply.
With the competition, I figure the best thing to do is to take some courses and enhance, what I already know.
Today's figures, though, may heighten workers' fears. Companies are firing again. In June, employers' payrolls registered a drop. 117,000 jobs lost.
It's not good news.
Mr. Bush wasn't the only one talking jobs today.
The president has said that he'll do whatever it takes to get reelected and keep his job, but the best thing he could do is to help Americans keep their jobs.
Jobs could become the #1 election issue. Unemployment rose in many of the big electoral states. California unemployment now 9.5%. Michigan 8.8%. Texas 8.2%. New York 9.2%. Florida 8.5%.
Jobs really are the key to an economic recovery. Jobs, jobs, and jobs. You've got to see jobs expand.
But these are the summer months when business always slows down, and that cuts the chances for any meaningful job creation, at least over the near future. Ray Brady, CBS News, New York.
President Bush said today he will sign a bill to give extra jobless benefits to the long-term unemployed. The measure will provide up to 26 more weeks of benefits to more than 1 million Americans. Ross Perot today won a spot on the ballot in California's general election. Now he's qualified in 20 states. Perot still hasn't officially declared his candidacy for president, but as Bill Lagatuda reports, Perot was campaigning again today after a week that saw his rising star falter.
It was vintage Ross Perot today in Washington State, pledging not to let the critics slow down his non-campaign. But as he continues to ride a huge wave of voter discontent in America, it's clear that even Perot's hardcore supporters, who in the past thought he could do no wrong, are beginning to want more. Ken Lyon collected signatures for Perot.
I've watched almost all of his press conferences and his town meetings and things like that. And I just get the feeling that most of the people that ask a question sit down and feel that their question hasn't been answered.
In search of answers himself, Ken Lyon joined the Perot backdrop today and listened.
Can we agree that we have work to do? Is there anybody here that's not willing to put his or her shoulder to the wheel and do it? Is there anybody here that can live with the fact that we are no longer the #1 economic superpower in the world? Is there any question in your minds that if we get off our seats and get in the ring, you and I can make the words "Made in the USA" once again the world standard for excellence?
Keeping his volunteers from deserting the team is only half the battle. To win, Perot needs whole blocks of voters who are more like Bill Wildprecht. He's always liked the idea of Perot, but lately...
I'm not sure right now, though, if he's the person I'll vote for come November, because he hasn't defined himself on most of the issues.
We can make this country anything we want it to be.
I'm not quite satisfied, but I'm still impressed with him.
And what about Ken Lyon, the loyalist, now that he's heard Perot's message firsthand?
Like a lot of people, I'm still waiting for more specifics. But there's nobody else to do the job.
All of which seems to indicate Perot's support is much thinner and far more discriminating than first thought. It's as if the voters enjoyed their first date with Perot and are now deciding whether to pursue a relationship. Bill Agaturo, CBS News, Olympia, Washington.
President Bush today vetoed a bill that would have allowed people to register to vote when they apply for a driver's license. Supporters of the so-called motor voter bill said it would make registration easier and help boost voter turnout. The president said it would be too expensive for the states and open to fraud. Tornadoes and floods and hail the size of softballs hit parts of the Great Plains today. Some farmers in Iowa and Nebraska reported their crops of wheat, corn, and soybeans destroyed. The wind blew 65 miles an hour around thunderstorms in Iowa, very hard on houses, fields, and barns. 6 inches of rain fell in eastern South Dakota, hard on human beings, hard on cattle, too. Parts of Minneapolis-St. Paul were flooded, too. When floods get this bad, they're hard, even on the fish. Holiday travel is booming this 4th of July weekend. As Giselle Fernandez reports tonight, millions of Americans are flying high and cheap.
Yeah, go inside and get it. How many bags you got? I got
A while in the middle.
From coast to coast at America's airports today, the nation was on the move.
El Paso, Texas.
North Dakota.
Jackson, Mississippi.
Today, millions of Americans chose the 4th of July to cash in their discounted tickets and kick off a record summer traveling season. An estimated 8 to 10 million travelers are expected to take to the skies this weekend alone. At Chicago's O'Hare, it was one of the busiest days ever.
We're expecting a all-time record passenger boarding day.
We heard about the discount fare and we jumped on it and got a round trip ticket.
Well, we've been already to New Orleans, Cancun, New York.
The major carriers have hired additional agents to cope with the new onslaught of inexperienced leisure travelers, families, and lots of children. Not a welcome sight for the business traveler used to more spacious skies.
I think it's a different clientele that's traveling, so it's made it more difficult. Lines are longer, parking lots are more crowded.
And flights are overbooked. It's as busy as Christmas or Thanksgiving.
I'm waiting 3 hours. I'm here since 10 o'clock this morning. Now they bumped me off. I got to go to Pittsburgh and then from Pittsburgh to Miami. It's ridiculous already.
Despite the headaches, the deluge has brought relief to the industry's recessionary drought.
This is a tremendous increase in the volume of passengers. That's a real plus for the airline industry.
The travel industry predicts this is just the beginning, that every day this summer will seem as busy as a holiday. And if today is any indication of what's to come, the airlines say brace for Sunday, when all of America's holiday travelers make their mad dash home. Giselle Fernandez, CBS News, New York.
Still ahead on tonight's CBS Evening News, only handouts for the hungry of this once elegant European city. Bob Simon reports from inside Sarajevo. And a new sound this election year, a song of praise to women who just might be on your ballot.